Hello, everyone, and welcome to Journey to Success Radio, a show featuring people and companies who are making a positive contribution to the world. This show will help you learn how to apply success principles in every area of your life so that you can make the most out of your skills and talents and accomplish more of your goals. To find out more about the show, please visit www.journeytosuccessradio.com.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Journey to Success Radio. My name is Kelly Russell. I am a mentee of Tom Too Tall Cunningham's, and I will serve as your guest today, or serve as your host today. Our guest today is Dr. Kathy Humphrey. Dr. Humphrey is the newly appointed Senior Vice-Chancellor for Engagement and Chief of Staff at the University of Pittsburgh. In her new role, she will concentrate on internal and external relations, focusing on facilitating business engagement, strategic initiatives and partnerships, and government interaction at all levels. She will work closely with the University of Pittsburgh Chancellor Patrick Gallagher and Pitt senior management to position the university to have maximum impact in the region, the Commonwealth, and beyond. For the past 9 years, she has served as Pitt's Vice Provost and Dean of Students. Dr. Humphrey has been the recipient of numerous awards and recognitions. She was honored as a recipient of the YWCA Tribute to Women Leadership Award in Education, and was selected as a member of the New Pittsburgh Courier's 50 Women of Excellence. She also received the University of Pittsburgh's African American Alumni Council inaugural Sankofa Award and has been chosen the Pitt Administrator of the Year the past 4 years by the student body. Most recently, she was one of 32 women from 13 countries chosen to participate in the International Women's Forum Leadership Foundation Fellows Program. Dr. Humphrey, it's a pleasure to have you today. Are you with us?
I am, and it is a pleasure to be with you as well.
Thank you for taking the time out and being a participant in this. This is my first solo interview. I'm sure we can make it through a very good time. You are a very distinguished lady right there, just going through your bio. I'm like, wow. And just so everybody knows, I had the pleasure of hearing Dr. Humphrey speak last month at a leadership breakfast event at Duquesne University, and she brought the house down, so to speak. So let's get into the questions, Dr. Humphrey.
Okay.
One, why is it crucial that an individual's life work line up with their purpose of their lives?
Well, if you think about your life as a holistic entity, we work most of our lives. We are children for about 18 years. Some of us, even as children, did not have the pleasure of not working. I started working at 12 years old. I got my first paycheck at 12 years old. But fortunately for many people, they don't start working until after the age of 18. But if you think about the amount of time that we work, that if that work can be meaningful work, and I don't really care what it is, if you can get somewhere in doing something that is more than just going through the motions, but your work you're in the situation where your work is literally so much a part of your life that you feel like you are living while you are at work, then I think you have lived an incredible life. I talk oftentimes about how many times people work until they retire. That's their goal. I'm gonna work and then I'm gonna retire at X age, and then it appears the next phrase that they would use, and then they're gonna start living. But reality is that all of us die in retirement. So you have to find work that you can find that's fulfilling, that is purposeful, that is meaningful, so that your life it really stands for something.
That is so true when you say that. What is it? I can't remember if it was Zig Ziglar I first heard it from, but I've heard it from so many people. If you enjoy what you're doing, you'll never work a day in your life.
Absolutely. And it's something that I say to our students, I say to them oftentimes, I hope that you will leave the University of Pittsburgh and that you will never work, but that you will be engaged in activities that are so meaningful to you that you feel like you are living right where you stand in your position.
I couldn't agree more. It's like if you enjoy what you're doing at work, if you're adding value to your life and to other people's lives, that's one of those things that can bring you joy. That's why you hear so many people who really enjoy their jobs. Like, I'm not going to work. I have a passion for what I do. I love what I do. I love helping people. I love serving people. That whole thing of servant leadership comes into play there. If you can be a leader and a helper to others, you add so much more value to other people's lives, more so than your own life.
Absolutely.
All right. To also expand, what role does the soul play in the workplace?
Well, the soul is the will, the intellect, the emotion, and the imagination. So if you think about that, the totality of the soul, and that's the soul is who we really are. It's what everybody knows us by is just our container called our body. But the soul is really what goes to work. And if you don't take all of you there, that means that you've left pieces of you behind that don't get to engage until you get out of work. But in actuality, if you take your will, and your will is your drive, and you take your intellect, all that you know, and you take your emotion, your passion. That's where the passion for the work comes in. That's what I love about what I do every day. My emotions are very engaged with it. And then you take that imagination. You really can't begin to have vision if you can't imagine something greater. You can't have vision of something greater. And so, I believe that a lack of vision, the people crumble, the systems perish. If you can't see something greater always happening, then you really cannot rise to the place that you should be. You don't get to live in the spaces that you should live in because you're never able to interact your entire being into the work that you have chosen to do. And I don't really care what that work is. You need to say, can I take all of me there? You can go to work anywhere, but can you take your soul there, which means the totality of your existence? And when you take that soul there, can you really use all pieces of you to really make the places where you stand greater and better is what helps us to have a fulfilling life.
Once again, I agree with that point. It's like I'm sure you listened to Les Brown. I remember him telling stories before talking about how, when he was in the job he didn't like, he'd be watching the Sunday afternoon football game or basketball game, and then he'd start dreading once the game was getting near the end. It's like, I got to go to work to Monday. And I'm sure you've heard the stat before where people say heart attacks occur most on a Monday morning between 7 and 9, and it's the whole thing that people would rather die than go to work.
Which is really, and what's so interesting about that is that's the condition that most people are in. Most people don't like where they're going on Monday morning. And it's pretty fascinating when you think about it. Most people are pretty excited when they get that job, but something happens. Something happens in between them getting the job, starting the job, doing the work of the job, some of the routine work of the job, and getting that first paycheck, the second paycheck, but something happens where the excitement goes away and it becomes mundane and it becomes routine and it becomes someplace where you are depleted as opposed to completed. And that happens when you're in a place where you are not designed to be. And so the ultimate goal has to be that you are trying to find work that you were created and designed to do because it's out there. Right.
And I like how you talk about you're in a place where you're designed not to be. And they always say that the biggest fight you'll ever have in life is with your inner voice. And that there's times that inner voice can discourage you from doing something, and there's times that inner voice can let you know, like, yeah, the paycheck might be good, but you are miserable. Think about what you become. Think about how you just snap out at people. Think about the weight you've gained. Just think about every day you wake up and you're just miserable.
Right. Absolutely.
I agree. And that kind of leads.
And no matter what, when you put something in a container that does not fit, it is always a problem. You just think about that from the just the physical position of that. If you stuff something in a container that does not fit, you can never close it, right? You can never close it. You may change the shape of it, but it does not. And the container does not get to do what it was actually created to do, and to preserve it or protect it as it should, because it's not being used correctly. And we're the same way. We take our containers with our soul full of it in it, and we place it in places where it should not be. And oftentimes in my presentations, I talk about look at how our environment works so beautifully, because everything in our environment does what it was created to design to do. The sun always heats. You don't see the sun trying to be the moon. The sun is just the sun. It does what it was designed to do. The grass is always on the ground. It never tries to grow in midair. Dolphins are never in the middle of the ocean. Never in the middle of the desert, saying I'm a survivor. These are things I often say, but humans, we're always somewhere we shouldn't be, doing something that we shouldn't do. And then we have the audacity to complain about it.
So true. It's like, I can't stand this place. I don't like it. Well, change. I don't want to change. I'm comfortable where I am. I've made it, but you're not happy.
Right.
And that's so true.
You're not happy.
And then when you're not happy.
And then we get mad at the place as opposed to getting mad at ourselves for staying in the place.
Right.
And then, we don't want to work as hard. We only will do what they absolutely ask us to do. We've gotten mad at the place when we should be mad at ourselves because we have left ourselves in the place. The other piece about that is you can go to a place and it can be perfectly lined up with your design, and then the place can change, and then you stay, and then you never really find your place again as opposed to exiting. But you have to have some boldness to be able to live like that.
Right. And it's funny how you say that. I don't know about you, but I think of people I've worked with in my past, and they don't pay me enough to do that, or that's not in my job description.
Yes.
I'm gonna just do as much as I can until they throw me out the door.
Exactly.
I always think on resume or on a job description how it says other duties as assigned. Like, just do it. Just get up and just do it. But that once again, that inner fight that people have where they've reached that point is like, I'm sick of this. I'm sick of everyone. I'm just tired, and I'm just going to just be miserable in myself and lash out at you as opposed to trying to change my situation, change my environment. Right.
Exactly.
So
I'm going to lash out to you because of the condition of my own soul. That's what it is.
So how does...
Or, the other piece of that is I don't feel like I'm valuable enough. You guys aren't paying me enough. You have to have value for yourself first. They don't value me. It's nothing you should ever concern yourself with. Do you value you?
Right.
Because if you value you, you will make some decisions.
And along with that value point, I also think about, like they always talk about your why in life. If you can find a why that's greater than you, if you can find a reason to work for something other than you, I think that can help inspire people as well. They always say, why's got to be so great it makes you cry. Me personally, my wife and I have a 4-year-old daughter, and it's like no matter what I go through or how tired I am, I'm like, look, this little girl's going to private school, and I got to make sure she keeps going to private school. So anything I do is not for me, it's for her. So I agree that people have to find something to move them, to bring them out of their lowest part and keep them going when things are tough for them.
Absolutely. It's that North Star. What is sustaining you? What is bringing you through? For me, my life is guided by my faith. And everybody has to find their own. But for me, it's like I'm a Christian, and because I'm a Christian, I have to do certain things. But ultimately, because I'm a Christian, I have to line up with the purpose that was given to me. And I do think that's interesting, the point that you bring out. Because when you start living out your purpose, you can't help but to start living so that others live.
Right. And I like how you bring up faith, because I think faith plays a role in so many people's lives. Like there was a statement I once, or a video I once heard by Art Williams, and he talked about God's got to come first, your family's got to come second, and business has got to come third. And I'm like, wow, that's really it when you think about it. Faith, family, business, in that order. And I think when you put God first and allow him to dictate and control your life, and like, Lord, I can't handle this, I need you to help show me the way, or give me a sign, what am I supposed to do? Give it to God and let him figure it out for you and let him figure it out.
That's right. And believe that he will place you where you need to be. You know, if you have that kind of relationship, you know, and to be perfectly honest with you, you know, I don't often talk about this when I'm at, you know, at professional places, but, you know, because you're interviewing me, if I didn't tell you, you know, that is my secret sauce, right? If I didn't tell you about my secret sauce, I wouldn't be giving you the whole story, because there is something that's driving my soul. But when I'm in that workplace, right, that piece of me just has to operate. You know, it can't be, you know, I'm doing this because I'm a Christian. No, it's got to be I'm operating as I believe that I am called to operate in this workspace and in this workplace. And you have to figure all of that out for yourself, again, to be taking every ounce of who you are into that space and working with it.
I personally like that expression, secret sauce. You hear that with so many different restaurants, or even, like, I remember my grandmother's cooking back in the day when I was a young kid. It's like, I'm going to put my little special recipe on this. Don't worry about what it is. I'll tell you one day when you get older so you can pass it down. So that's
right. That's right.
So taking a lot in what we said, and it's been so much, how does one go about finding their purpose in life?
Right. So, you know, the biggest thing is, first of all, you've got to ask. You've got to ask yourself, what am I good at? What am I really good at? And then you got to be honest with yourself, because, you know, oftentimes we're not honest with ourselves, right, about what am I really good at. My husband and I right now are taking ballroom dancing lessons, because we neither one of us has ever taken dance lessons in our lives. And you know what? I'm not that good at it, but I'm having fun at it. But I would never try to go and begin to be a competitive dancer, because it's really not my calling. It's something that I enjoy, but it's not my calling. You know, so you have to look at yourself in the mirror and say, what am I really good at, right? And then once you say, here's what I'm really good at, now let me see if I can get that confirmed. Do others remark about how good I am? That's one way of confirming it. But sometimes our gifts are not even able to be confirmed because we're not able to let them out. And then the next thing is that after you've asked and you've confirmed, you really, really, really have to consider, how can I put what I love doing into action? What do I love? You know, all the people that I've ever interviewed about their purpose, they tell me that they can connect their childhood loves with what they do today. You know, when I interviewed the architect, he told me about how he loved going down to the downtown as a boy and watching buildings come up. And today he's an architect. You know, when I interviewed the nurse, she talked about creating her own X-rays to heal, you know, with as a child. And when I talked to the minister, he told me about sneaking into the church and bringing friends in, and him sneaking onto the pulpit and preaching to his friends during the service. And for me, you know, I love teaching, and so I played house by myself. I played school by myself, and sometimes that meant there was no kids to teach, so I just taught the empty chairs. But today I teach chairs full of people. And so I think being able to say, what did I love as a child, and what do I still love today, and how am I operating that? Because there's probably something to that, right? And then after I look at what do I love and how can I put what I love doing into place, then I have to say, how can I do it in a way that makes the world greater? And I tell you, if you can do those things, you can find it. But we have callings that we deny every day, right? So I have taken on the purpose of being a mom. And that's a big calling. It's a big purpose. And so that helps me to go to work and do some of the other things that I do, just as you for your daughter. You know, I have been designed and created to be a wife. And so that's an important role for me that I should be trying to cultivate and manage and make better and make stronger every single day, because that is how the gifts that you have really come into focus when you give them attention and you nurture that gift and you create it and you develop it and you spend time with it. You know, the concert artist never becomes a concert artist just because she likes playing the piano or he likes playing the piano. They become a concert artist because they work at it and because they hone that gift and they mold it and they nurture it and they feed it and they train it. And it's the same thing you got to do with your own raw purposes. You got to find it, you got to nurture it, you got to feed it, you got to drop it, you got to put it into place. That's how you do it.
There are so many nuggets in that whole statement you just gave. A couple of pieces I take out of it is how you talk about your gifts. And I remember hearing somebody, if you learn to develop your gifts can take you many places that you can never imagine. And then I think about you talking about working on your gifts and getting to a sense of mastery. And they talk about mastery is like 10,000 hours of honing your craft. And even within mastery, it's like, you have to find out what 3 specific things are you really good at, or what 3 specific things you need to help do your job. If you master those 3 specific things that are purposed within your job, that can take you far in life. And I find that so true. People always want to put so many things on a big board, but it's like you have to just break it down to the very small, minute things that help take you forward.
Absolutely.
All right. I'm just in total agreement with you right here. What tips would you give for professionals to become more self-aware?
You know, that goes back into asking yourself, right? And really, it really goes to the core of that purpose again. And, you know, most leaders are either successful or not successful because they're not self-aware, because they are or they're not self-aware. And that means that, you know, have you ever worked for someone who you just thought, you don't even know who you are, or you don't realize the impact that you're making or what you are able to do and what you are not able to do? You know, great leaders know what they don't know. They know what they don't know, and they try to find people to work with them that know what they know. Great leaders are not afraid to have someone working for them who's smart. And, you know, and I never say smarter than them, because there's really no such thing as that. We're all smart in our own way, and we all have a lot of knowledge in our own systematic systems. But the reality is that they are not afraid of talented people, because they're very self-aware about their own talent, and they're very confident in their own talent. And when you're confident in your own talent and you know that you are in the place where you're designed to be, somebody else being great does not shake you, rattle you, or roll you, but it increases you.
So true. And I like how you talk about leadership in regards to leader. And sometimes you have to not necessarily be the smartest person in the room. Like I remember listening to a lesson from Darren Hardy of Success Magazine. He was interviewing some CEO, and the CEO is like, look, if I have a marketing idea that my chief marketing officer doesn't have, we're in problem. If I come up with some type of innovation for something to help our IT department that my CIO doesn't have, we've got a serious issue here. And that's one of the key things of leadership, is knowing when to delegate and let the people who you put in charge take charge and do their job. But I can't speak for you. I personally have encountered way too many people who always want to be the chief and can't just delegate to their Indians, so to speak, who they want to put in charge of others. It's like, I'm going to control this. I'm Oz. I'm the greatest person of all, and all will bow and do as I say, as opposed to letting the people who are in leadership positions do what they need to do, and you just sit back and watch everything just kind of play itself out. That is so true.
So true.
Man.
It's so true. Good.
What are some of the most important aspects of leadership?
Well, I think if the ultimate aspect for me for leadership is Robert Greenleaf, and when he says that a real leader is willing to serve others until they're ready to serve themselves. And a real leader for me has a servant's heart, and they say, I will do whatever it takes to get my team to the point where they are self-sufficient. One way I always know that it's time for me to change positions is that I have developed the people around me to the point where they really can operate without me. Usually when you go into a system, the team has to figure out how to operate, then they have to figure out how to operate together, and then they have to figure out how to operate efficiently, and then they have to figure out how to operate at a very, very, very advanced level. When you can get your team to the point where they can do all of those things, operate efficiently, begin to create vision for themselves, begin to make new systems happen, begin to make the system work without your input, you have indeed been a leader. Because you can leave that system and it can function well without you. If your system falls completely apart because you're not there, you've not done a good job. Because, first of all, you didn't put the systems in place that were sustainable. What you did was make sure that you were always the almighty. That's not leadership.
Right. I kind of like to take a side note off of that question. How would you work with an individual who's like that? The one who won't necessarily help spur their people on to lead without them. One of those people who's the micromanager. How would you work with a person like that, or help them to realize that as great as they think they are, they're not?
Well, I think a lot of it has a lot to do with the relationship you have with the leader. You know, if you have a very close relationship with the leader, and the leader depends on you to show him or her who they are. You know, I have people that work with me in the past, and I'm in a new job now, and I'm trying to develop this even now, who will show me who I am. Not in a way where there's like, let me tell you who you are, not in that way. But they will say things, and they will create systems, and they will bring me information, and it will help me to see how I am functioning in the environment. You know, they will serve as my feedback. Now, if you're in that position, I think you can go kind of right at it, sit down side, and say, listen, here's what I see. Here's what I think I see you doing, right? And is that what you want to be doing? Because really, at the end of the day, the supervisor or the leader, or whomever it is the leader, and your words alone will not dethrone them. And you want to make sure that you are not dethroned in the process of giving feedback. So you got to be careful with this, right? But if you are not in that position of being able to be the confidant, if you're not in that position of being able to be the person who provides the leader with feedback, then what you have to do is you have to determine, am I able to work around the esteem of the leader? Am I able to be successful in spite of the weaknesses that they may have? Now, the reality is every leader has some weaknesses, every single one, because they are what we call humans, and humans will always have some fault within them. Every day you have to decide, am I able to be successful in spite of their weakness? If you can answer that question, yes, you still may be very well may be in the right place. Because remember, there's a lot to learn from other people's weaknesses. Probably some of the best leadership information I have is not the positive information I've received. It's working with leaders in my past, my distant past, that were not strong. And I could see the effect of it in our organization and in our environment. And I learned so much from their poor leadership to make sure that I wasn't doing the same kinds of things when I became the leader. For example, I had a supervisor when I first began my career who just couldn't give feedback. No matter what, you could ask her, you could prompt her, you could say, look, I need some help. She just was not going to get feedback. You knew that she wasn't pleased, but you just didn't know why. And I thought, I will never be that person. And so today, I'm pretty direct. You know, when somebody's doing something that I don't like in our operation, I am respectful. I pull them aside. I coach them, and I let them know, because I don't think it's fair to allow somebody to drown or not to have that information. So I think that's what you have to do when you're managing up. And that's what we all have to do. We have to manage up. You have to say, what position am I in to manage up? Or as I manage up, how do I manage around my leader or supervisor's weaknesses?
Once again, I agree with you. And a couple points I took out, I think about learning from the leader, especially their weaknesses. Like you, I think about some of the leaders I've had in my past, and you know, when I get to that leadership position that they have, it's like, okay, I make sure I don't do that. I make sure not. I go with communication as well, because I find communication is key. It's one thing about how you talk to people and how you address them. I say, don't yell, don't belittle, don't invoke fear, don't create a negative environment in the workplace, going back to some of our earlier points where people just dread going to work. I feel if people are happy to come to work, that makes the work environment a lot better. If you talk to people like they're respectable adults, if you actually show that you care about them not only as a worker but as an individual, as a mother or a father or brother or sister, whatever type of role they have within their family, that I feel that makes the work environment very good. I think about one of my current supervisors, of the fact he'll come around, talk to us every day, talk about how's the family. I know about his family. My daughter has a situation. His granddaughter has a situation. We'll talk about that. But showing that you actually care about people, that's one of the best things you do. Some people always think they want monetary reward, but sometimes it's just to know that you're cared about and valued as an individual, that I think is so key. That it's the little things that I think people sometimes want. Yeah, it's great to get the bonus. It's great to get the raise every once in a while. But, you know, just show me that I count as a person. And I think that's kind of missed at times.
It's huge. It is huge that people feel like you see them. You see them, and you see them as humans, and that you care. You cannot overestimate the power of care in the work environment, the power of forgiveness in the work environment. You can't, because those are all the people of that soul that's coming to work with that emotion.
So true, so true. I want to take, as we almost get ready to wrap up here, I want to digress back into something I read into your bio that I thought was very cool, that you have been chosen the Pitt Administrator of the Year the past 4 years by the student body. What type of connection are you making with the student body to receive an award like that?
Well, you know, I was the Dean of Students up until about 4 months ago. And so what meant was my job was really, really, really to be in tune with them, to meet their needs. And I made up in my mind that my goal was going to be to create the best collegiate experience in the world for my students. And I was going to do everything in my power to try to make that happen. And while I don't do that every single day to day, that's not my job anymore, it is my job to still do that from where I am, because now I have even more influence over what happens institutionally to the University of Pittsburgh. And so I think I will tell you what I think is behind that is that I was very passionate about what I and I still am, about what I do every day. That passion gave me the energy to drive harder than anybody could drive if they weren't passionate about it. You know, if I was having a bad day, I would go and sit down and just talk to students. And it would, you know, and they would re-energize me and give me life to go back upstairs and deal with whatever mountain that I had to climb over to get to the next part of elevating their experience. And so I am probably, out of all the honors that you listed out, probably that is probably the most important honor to me is that the very people that I was serving acknowledged the fact that I was their servant in many, many ways. And so I am called. They are my purpose. I love students. I love that traditional age student because of where they are. They have so much hope. My design is completely designed to manage them. A lot of people don't like that age group, right? Because this is an age group where they're not really quite adults, but they are in adult form, and they are becoming fully invested adults. And our job is to make sure that they are fully functioning adults when they leave us. And so because that's a part of my calling, I can deal with all the nonsense that goes along with becoming an adult. It's just nonsense. I often say to people, when a 2-year-old wets their diaper, nobody gets excited. So when a college student does something that's inappropriate, you shouldn't get excited. That's a part of their developmental process. Yes, they're going to do things they shouldn't do. That's part of the developmental process. But if you are passionate about it, you can look over whatever they've done just like that parent looks over that wet diaper.
Mm-hmm. That is so true. I've worked with students. I've worked with high school students in the past, and it can be challenging at times. I'm sure you realize this and know that.
Yes.
But, at the end of the day, it can also be a blessing. I say, as much as they used to frustrate me, there was times I really enjoyed being around those kids. I remember leaving. It was hard for me to tell them. I'm like, I can't tell them this. I might break out in tears.
Right.
If they saw me cry, they'd be like, "What's wrong with you? What you doing, Mike?" It was like, I'm leaving.
Absolutely.
It just pains me to tell y'all I'm leaving. And the funny thing is, I wasn't married at the time, but I eventually ended up getting married not too long after I left. And two of the guys from the program actually end up being ushers in my wedding.
Oh, wonderful.
They end up, there was a group of guys I stuck with and used to go to basketball games and things. So it's like, look, just because I'm leaving doesn't mean I'm leaving y'all. Y'all got my number. If something comes up, call me. I'll still serve as a mentor to y'all. I'll do what I can to help y'all. I'm there for y'all. And I'm glad to say we've had a relationship since then. And it was a true blessing on both halves. I think one guy was like, man, Mr. Kells, you're the most positive black role model I have around. And
that means a lot.
Positive role model, I should say. Positive role model. And that was something. That was really a lot. Like, I'm glad I could be something to help you. But guess what? Now he's a father, and he's got a young daughter as well. And I see what things he posts on Facebook, and I'm like, I'm glad to see the man you've become.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful.
Thank you. One thing I like to always ask people is to find out, what book you're reading that's giving you inspiration, or what YouTube video are you watching, or what CD are you listening to that helps inspire you. So pick any one of those topics you'd like to expound on.
Well, it's interesting that you say that. So up until about a week ago, when Google decided no longer to carry YouTube, I watched every single day T.D. Jakes.
Okay.
And I love T.D. Jakes because, and I would watch it in the morning before I went to work because it's a part of my positive belief system that I create for myself. He's always talking about something positive. He's always talking about something that's driving you to the next level of your life. And he oftentimes talks about leadership. Oftentimes, although he's a minister, he speaks about leadership and about how we maneuver this life on a daily basis, and that encourages me a lot. I said to my sons, the reason why I go to church every Sunday is because it douses me in direction for my next week, and it gives me more courage, and it makes me stand stronger and stand more boldly the next week. So that's something that's a part of my system. I'm getting ready to read the book David and Goliath. I don't know if you've seen that book, but I'm getting ready to read it, and it is written by, the author is escaping me, but it's pretty popular out there yet now. My husband are celebrating our 30th anniversary, and we're going on a cruise, and I've got that book, and I've set that aside that I'm going to go with that next. So I just finished Good to Great not that long ago because I thought it was an interesting book to try to get some tips out of. So not that long ago did I engage with that book. I from time to time pick it back up to refresh myself with some of those concepts. I don't believe all of those concepts work, but some of those concepts I do believe are right and are good for the workplace. I routinely try to stay in tune and in touch with what's coming out naturally in my field and in higher education. So that kind of information I'm constantly reading as well.
Okay, it's interesting. You mentioned T.D. Jakes. Last night I was listening to T.D. Jakes on YouTube. Lord, give me a praying spirit, and also listened to Jennifer. I might say her last name wrong, Byard, Get Your Feet Wet. So when she said T.D. Jakes,
yeah.
I'm like, oh, I was just listening to T.D. Jakes last night.
Yeah.
So,
he's good, isn't he?
I think a lot. Yes, he is.
Yes, he is.
He is.
Really good.
Well, Dr. Humphrey, do you have any last pieces of advice to offer to any of our listeners out there in regards to, something you may have not mentioned, or something like words of encouragement to help them through those trying times?
The only thing I would say is that you get one life, and you really don't know from day to day whether you're going to have another one, whether there's going to be another moment. From moment to moment, we don't know. And so my advice would be is live this life like you are not going to have another day. And make sure that everything you do in this day fulfills you on that day, because tomorrow is not promised, and since it is not, how the energy that we use today is important. And then the last thing I would say is something that you have kind of talked about a little bit too. When my life is not simply about me, but it is about how I serve those around me, and how I can make things greater because I stand in spaces. When I am not consumed with me, my life is greater. And I just want to encourage everyone to think about that. And then the last thing for me is that you have to have something to sustain you. Humans, if you are being sustained by humans, I promise you, look to be failed, because they are going to fail you. You have to determine that, what's going to sustain you in the midst of that, because something has to be the reason behind the design and the purpose that you are.
Once again, I couldn't disagree with you more, sustaining you. When we met, I talked about some of the things you said. I told you reminded me of stuff I'm hearing from Les Brown all the time. I also like to listen to Jim Rohn or Darren Hardy to help give me daily motivation to just make it through life. I really feel myself with positive, motivating things compared to some of the stuff you hear on news radio, or some of the stuff you watch in the news. So what you fill yourself with, and what you listen to, and who you're living for, your purpose, I agree with all those points that you have mentioned.
Right.
Well, Dr. Humphrey, I want to say it was a pleasure to be your interview. If somebody rings my doorbell, that's just great. It was a pleasure to interview you, and I thank you for your time and attention here, and I will be in touch shortly with a follow-up for this. And
all right,
you again.
Good. You're welcome. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Oh, and happy anniversary to you and your husband as well. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Journey to Success Radio. If you or anyone you know would like to be interviewed for the show, email Tom at tom2tall.com for